Welcome to Parenting ToolBox TV, and we're delighted, aren't we, Liz, to have Roger Robb
Yes.
here with us today. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Roger.
So,
Hello.
Roger,
Yeah.
Roger, you're an accredited parenting practitioner with, you say, decades of experience. That sounds incredible.
Wow. I guess it does, doesn't it? So I live to tell the tale. God's reward for not killing your children and grandchildren. So I guess I'm enjoying my own the fruit of parenting, the things I've done right, things perhaps I haven't gotten it bang on, so to speak. But yes, I have a few years experience as a parenting practitioner, accredited, but also as a grandfather myself.
Oh, I love that. Roger, tell us about your own children and grandchildren. How many children do you have, and what are their ages, and the dynamic of your family?
Okay, well, my son Michael, he's 33, and great young man, very much a strong personality, beautiful, proud of him. And then he's 33, and then I have 3 daughters, all the same age. They're 27, so they're triplets.
I love that you have triplets.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Wow, hands full.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can imagine having 4 children under the age of 5. It's quite pressing. And then I now have 3 grandchildren as well. So Michael, my son, has a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and then one of my daughters, Emily, she has a little boy, just turned 3. His name is Ezra. So yes, I'm enjoying being a grandfather, which is lovely.
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So
your whole working life has sort of been around families and children, and so that must be a massive passion for you, Roger.
Yes, it is. So I've engaged from my early teens in working in the third sector world, charity world, and working with all sorts of communities, networking with police, employment officers, to schools, secondary and primary, and just working around families and supporting families, setting up youth projects and community projects, community allotments, all that sort of thing, just empowering families. Even got to visit to Clarence House, actually, to see Prince Charles.
Wow.
Which was quite nice, to be honest.
So what was it that made you go into this area? Did you train in parenting initially, or have you come into it from a different route? What made you hone your specialism? Okay,
so my own upbringing was a mark on my life, seeing my father at the age of 8, whilst I was supporting my mum, just doing some shopping. I saw my father across the road, and I saw him with another woman, and not only with another woman, but another family. So part of me was that I didn't want to be like my father. I mean, thankfully, before he did pass away, we had a very powerful, great relationship. But it was a catalyst to me knowing what I didn't want to be. Yeah. And so that kind of ushered me into parenting. I've been an accredited parenting practitioner for about 8 years, but prior to that, life has led me to work with and support families, and ongoing now working with families in all sorts of settings, sharing evidence-based courses.
Wow.
Amazing. Such an inspiration. Yeah. Such an inspiration.
It's such a powerful story, isn't it, Jane?
Yeah.
Think
touching.
How that, and it strikes me as an example in positive psychology of what they call post-traumatic growth. Like, you used a really, what could have been a terrible, experience for you, and was an experience that was terrible for you, but you used it and harnessed it. But you didn't just harness it for you. You used it to help other people as well. So to reach your own family, but also beyond. And I think that's phenomenal. I think that's
I mean, I have a strong faith and a strong passion to help. And I think deep down within us all as human beings, we want to do good. We want to make a difference. We want to leave a legacy. I have a little phrase that I use, that to influence today, to release tomorrow. And I think as you get older, I've got the big 6-0 this year. I know.
We'll have to have a party. You'll have to invite us around.
Yeah.
Well, I'll probably hide in the corner somewhere. No.
Oh no, you're not allowed. We're not going to allow that. Not on our watch.
Yes, I have a few friends that are trying to sort me out regarding that. I'll have to get some of the dancing shoes out again, I think. Yeah. And so influencing today to release tomorrow, to have a legacy. Many men actually live life very lonely and aren't as open about their emotions, their feelings, and actually that transfers into their parenting and how they want to be respected. Yes, respect is valuable for men, I think. It's how many men feel loved. Often, you do the research and people talk about the male brain and the female brain. Well, my wife is very much the opposite. I'm more female brain and my wife's more male brain. What do I mean by that? It's more that my emotions, and I think it's empowering. I'm open about my emotions. I think sensitive in a way that that not that most men aren't, that all men aren't, but I'm sensitive in a way that actually engages with the heart, engages not with just with the outcome, but the reasoning for it. And I'm interested in that. And I think there's a natural curiosity to know why people think how they think, which obviously helps me when it comes to parenting. Not to be dismissive, but when people feel understood, when parents feel understood, in fact, if I might just say that, I'm doing again a parenting this afternoon, had about 17 parents on a course. And when you use these particular words, you would be surprised how powerful they are. And yet I'm thinking, this is basic humankind, isn't it? And when I say to parents, keep being a great parent, 80-90% of the time, people well up because nobody said that. And you realize you're empowering people and you're giving them permission to value what they're doing. And, getting up in the morning, doing that routine, it's so much harder for parents. And particularly, I think, dads don't always get that right. Fathers don't always know how to navigate some of that. And so I'm leaning in at the moment in various projects and prison work to empower, to break that cycle of trauma, to break that cycle of the fatherless generation, if I dare say that.
Wow, the fatherless generation. What do you mean by the fatherless generation?
I think there's a lot of, and this is not a judgmental statement. I hope it doesn't come across that way. But we have generations of, they put it this way. They say it takes a village to raise a child, so it's a wider community. So taking it just from male, female, but actually that community of gathering of everybody moving in the same direction, that. It's almost as though those smaller family networks, because of the pace of life, the rhythm of life, it's really hard to maintain. And I guess when I say fatherless, because most people are doing life at a rhythm that's not healthy. Their employment is demanding more of them. Their life is demanding more of them. And it's just not healthy. If they were doing life at their own pace, then they perhaps could actually be more reflective and more responsive rather than reactionary. Need to regulate, don't we? We need to regulate. And so I think there are a lot of blended families. I think the percentages are so high regarding blended families, reconstituted families, whatever the language, and not just parents not staying together. The percentages are very high regarding the pressure on new people with couples with newborn babies. There's a lot of pressure. Statistics are high regarding them not making it through that first year. Maybe that's a possibility that the wider family network isn't. The Englishman's home is his castle is one thing, but also with the diversity of our communities. As a black man, I'm saying I grew up in a white middle class community, and some of those communities, my wife is white and my children are obviously mixed race. And the dynamic we grew up in, there's different cultural responses and expectations. In some cultures, for instance, the African cultures, you don't even name your own child, your grandparents will. So there's a greater sense of a wider family of input, and there's honoring of those generations. But now that fathering, that mothering, that net that we need isn't necessarily there. And when it is there, it's often, there's a lot of worn out grandparents because the parents are having to do the work because it's costing so much, the pain for the childcare. And that's just in our culture. But again, I'm working with many families who are new to the English British culture, who may feel, but I don't know what you guys were like, but when Dad said jump, it wasn't. I didn't do this, for instance, to my dad ever. I didn't go.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think I'd be here right now if I'd done that. And actually, there are other cultures that that respect is demanded.
Yes.
But their children, and this is really important, their children are navigating not only different generations, but different cultures. So they're in secondary school, they're in primary school, and they have a culture, they have an expectation, they have a way of communication, of being parented even, dare I say, influenced. And then they go home to a different culture. They may even have a different faith, but they're and parents are anxious and worried because they're thinking, I don't want my children being impacted by some of this even British culture. And there's a lot of anxiety in families. There's a lot of
hard, I see it myself. So my background would be Irish, obviously. And I like having come through London as well, because we lived in London. So as a child, I was in London to start with, then in Ireland. So I went from one extreme to the other. I went from like the metropolis to the middle of nowhere in the west of Ireland. And it's really interesting because I know that my values were very much instilled by my parents, working class, very much a socialist and working hard and all the rest. But it's quite interesting to see my children now, who we've raised in Liverpool. And since they went to secondary school, the values that we thought that we had instilled, because I co-parent with their dad, we're not together, but we still co-parent quite well. And we're on the same page when it comes to, values, especially materialism. That's the one that's really grinding my gears at the moment, because my daughter now is 12 and wants all of the, Jane, this from your daughter. They want all the best things when it comes to makeup. And I just look and think, where did that come from? It did not come from me. I did not lead that. That to me is not high on my value priority list at all. But it's and my son as well.
They're so influenced by their friends, aren't they? And what's going on in social media and what they're watching, and it's those are external influences that we can't.
It's a hard one to navigate, I find, and I think it's interesting the gender. So when you talk about parenting and you talk about the fathers and mothers and the different ways, their dad is very like, this is ridiculous. And I'm slightly more permissive to a degree of saying, I'm going to save the money to get her the makeup that she wants because she does want to fit in. And there's that extreme. There's the extreme. And every fiber in my being is like, fighting against having to go in and buy this tiny little tub of nonsense with the white no logo thing that costs 30 quid that you could get below Asda with a generic brand on it for like 3. But I still, so there's that conflict, I suppose. So what I'm saying is, do you find that when you work with parents that there's a gender divide with parenting, with mum and dad? And
there is. I just, before I came on here, I've had quite a strong email from a social worker, because I work for local government, as well as working for myself. I work as a parenting practitioner for a local government, and strong email, urgent parenting for dads. I need this. I need the parenting books for this father. And I had to say to my case manager, because we review some of our situations without going into personal details, that some of the situations where I find that fathers, particularly, I as the only male in our team, I get a lot of the fathers, and many times those that are seen as aggressive, and some are, as controlling, and some are, and perhaps not seen their daughter for a year, spoken to them, and yet. And I've got the reports. They've put complaints in against social care, social services, complaints. This guy's hard. But yet they turn around and say to me, thank you. I feel listened to. I feel empowered. They even use the word fathered. And I'm thinking, am I colluding? I'm thinking, what's going on here that people feel? And it's only slight incremental changes in my communication to understand where they're coming from. So to answer your question, hopefully, imagine you have a young girl, she's age 12, and she's not spoken to her father for a year and a half. For this father to understand, not just she's rebellious, she's wanting this, and she's not listening, and the mother's letting her have her own way, but to understand how this 12-year-old feels.
Yes.
And just wait a minute and think. And often, some of the men I'm working with, they haven't. And you almost have to say, I hear what you're saying. You've had a whinge. When I used to lead parenting for dads across the city I work for, and I had to add an extra week in for the course that I ran. So I'd have fathers who are parents of children that are newborn to 18. And literally, I'd have to add a new week, an extra week in, just to get all the bravado out, all the aggression out.
Okay.
So
break down the barriers. Break down the barriers.
And then we could talk about, well, how does your child feel?
Wow, that's the thing. That seems to me the biggest takeaway. And Jane, you talk about that with parents all the time. It's Jane talks about putting ourselves into our teens' shoes.
Wow.
And it's something that when I feel triggered and angry about things, like, you know, various things, like the computer wasn't working yesterday, my son was getting really angry. Okay. And I feel his pain, but I also resist because he starts saying, why did you buy that? Why did you know? And then I get defensive, and then I'm thinking, I need to, like today, it didn't end well. And we did amend it in the end, but I think, you know, he's right. He's frustrated. But if I could get down to his level, the way Jane and you do as well, Roger, you're brilliant at reminding me to kind of get back and anchor myself with what are they feeling? It's about the kids. It's not about me. It's not, you know.
It is, isn't it? It's that self-awareness, starting from self-awareness, isn't it, from the very beginning, and putting, as you say, putting yourself in their shoes, and not forgetting, you know, we are retired teenagers ourselves. We've been there. We've had those stroppy moments as well.
Still do.
I know. So we need to bring it in and be the adults in the situation, you know, because we can regress and sometimes go a bit backwards and get triggered, and also from how we were parented, that can trigger things as well. So it's really you know, finding that self-awareness and starting from that point, I believe, and then moving on.
It's very true, Jane. One of the things that many parents will hear themselves saying is, back in my day, and you almost say, well, wait a minute, we're not back in your day. This is a new day. And actually, there are different pressures. How about understanding that little Jimmy has actually got different pressures? Gone are the days when, you know, it's like the church bells would ring and everybody would go to the church because, you know, the fountain of all wisdom was at the church. The minister would be the one that could read and educate the whole community. Actually, life's changed. We have these things called our phones and computers. Children are more informed, aren't they? We didn't have the information our children, so they're actually making choices. You know, age 59 now. You know, I can't change my phone because if I change it, I might not understand everything. So my grandson, who's 3, might be able to help me to navigate my phone, some of the things it can do. And so there's so much that comes naturally to this generation as they're born into it.
Yes.
And I find that helping parents to recognize how they're communicating, which is kind of what we're saying. If we only had one word, it is about communication, and communication's done at a different pace. And for myself, I've simplified the evidence-based programs into just simpler forms. So I have a 7 R's that I share, and one of them is rhythm. And actually, by slowing down, we just do life at a different pace. We can lean in. We can listen more. We can come across. There's lots of benefits because we don't want to react. We want to respond and promote that self-regulatory behavior. We want to regulate ourselves to model that. But I'm not sure we always do that. And yeah, it's tricky.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. It's because it is about listening, isn't it? That's key. It's a paramount that we do listen as parents. And I think, it's not about being understood as parents, but it's about understanding.
Very good.
Yeah. So for us, it's about understanding the child, not being the one you understand me.
Oh, Jane,
I don't want to be. I don't want to be.
That link so I remember, okay?
Yeah.
Do something about that.
So it's about being.
I agree.
Yeah, it's about being not being understood, but being about understanding.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I got it right all the time, Jane, as a parent.
Yeah.
But then nobody does, and there is no. We can't beat ourselves up about these things. We've done our best. You've done everything out of love. You've done everything out of care. You've done everything the best you can do. I don't think there's one person on this planet that's got it right.
No.
It's so true.
We give ourselves
on.
Yeah. How many times have you heard people say,
there's no manual, is there?
I'm a great parent, but I'm a brilliant parent. And it's a really interesting thing. But the woman I work with, who's a counsellor, she said to us the other day, we were talking about Mother's Day, we were talking about International Women's Day, and she said, I've worked with a lot of women over my years. She's 75, Helen is her name. Wow. And she said something so wise. She said, I've never had one of the women who I work with come to me and say, I'm an amazing mother. They've never actually said, I'm an amazing. Even if they say, if she makes them actually look at it face on, they will have to always have some kind of disclaimer, but I don't do, or I can't, or I have.
What I do for that, I make at the end of my session, everybody raises their hand. We go like this. We raise our hands and we encourage ourselves.
Love it.
And we say, I'm a great mother.
Now.
I'm a great father. And actually, we need to give ourselves a pat on the back. And using the virtual means of communication now and a lot of parenting, we almost have to. And a lot of parents have their cameras off, which limits how much I can help them, because I want to give them honest feedback on how they're coming across. Because sometimes it's that I can tell they're not listening because I've asked a question and they're answering or just airing how they're feeling, which is what their child has to endure, rather than feeling, as Jane's saying, please listen to me, Mum. Please understand me. And then we go into their space, standing in the doorway of their bedroom, barking at them, and think they just want us to get out the room. Just go. I'll say yes to anything as long as you just get out my space, rather than a shared space of where they both feel listened to. It's very, very, very important. It's so different to the trajectory.
And I think, also it's about, as parents, it's not, we tend to be on the nitty gritty of things, don't we?
Yeah.
Picking on things and then this isn't right, that's not right. And actually, if we can just zoom out and see that bigger picture. Zoom out and see the bigger picture and see what's, choose your battles is so true. And it was interesting. I remember before I became a mum, I got this parenting book, and the first thing it said in it was, before I became, I think it was something along the lines of, before I became a parent, I thought I'd be a brilliant parent, but now I'm a parent. It's like, you always think you're going to be that best parent, don't you? But in reality, it's just, we're all human, and it's just as it is.
There's a lot of pain.
Yeah, a pain is the word.
There's a lot of pain, isn't there?
We need to talk more about that, though, I think, in our society, because we don't necessarily address that. So when you're an expectant mum, or when, you know, the baby arrives, or what, when you start your family, people are getting more honest, aren't they? You can see there are forums there, and there is support, but there still is that picket fence and that 2.3 family type thing, 2.5 thing, you know, everyone running, gambling through fields. And I'll tell you an example of that. Whenever I'm doing a PowerPoint where I need to get a picture of family values or something, and the absolute pukey stock photos you get, you know what I mean? Everyone in the sun jumping, holding hands, or sitting around a table laughing, and you're just like, who is that? Who are these people? You know? So it's kind of being honest that it is painful, that there is grit. There, you know, you need grit to get through it.
To
and
keep
it's
going.
not your fault. It's okay to accept that this is the way it is, and you will get it wrong.
Becoming a parent changes you hugely. I mean, a mother giving birth or just becoming a mother, but and then that had the dynamics of a father. I mean, it just changes you, and
100%.
It's okay to change and shift and not be, you know, who you were. And that's quite hard sometimes, leaving behind who you were in the past.
The identity piece.
Yes. It impacts who you are today, but we can change. Even research now, there were some friends at Loughborough University and I can't remember her full name, Professor Jane, I can't remember her name now, but there's a lot of research around, talks about the way that the understanding that even the male brain changes, and the testosterone levels drop when you become a father to make you more engaging. So back in the day, we recognized that women's bodies change and their emotions change, but actually there's a similar, if not the same, experience for men, but we haven't acknowledged, we haven't been aware of it. There's enough research now, and it's worth looking into that. But equally, the environment in which we're parenting, the multicultural ism that's around, the
external,
and even I think back to children. Liz, you said about the way we talk now. Back in my day, you did your homework on your own, but children are actually meeting at the cafe and doing homework and engaging. And here's the thing: they're having honest conversation with their friends, and they want to have those conversations. You're saying, Jane, with their parents. And it's really, really sad if we don't lean in and listen and actually learn our child's love language, learn the moments when it's right, not to bark at them, but actually, this is a moment. Do I know the best time to actually challenge?
Oh, do you know what, Roger? I love that. I love that it's the first time actually that I've heard the term, you know, that love language used to be applied to our children. And it makes such sense. It makes such sense because there is a lesson in it when it comes to our partners. And say, you know, this is an act, you know, act of kindness, or action is what I speak, or affirmation. But I'm just thinking now, that's made me completely change the lens of how I look at my two. And I'm going to think about that. I'm really going to think about that, especially as Mother's Day comes along. Because
because we know we show love the way we want to receive it. So I'm very wordy, which is quite unusual for a man. I love words, you know. My wife
so affirmation,
you know, handsome guy. But you know, but you know, she told me she loved me when we got married 35 years ago, and if anything changes, I'll let you know. She's not really bothered about the words, as well, you know,
reaffirming it,
reaffirming it. Although, you know, that's partly down to the trauma of her own upbringing. As we've begun to understand, but you know, if we feel loved, then we have a grace. But then what many parents do, we go into legalism, we put laws in place. Not why you're living in this house. I've told you, and there's a threat in the tonality. There's a threat in our communication. Our non-verbal communication is aggressive, and we don't realize. But actually, for some children, parents would say, "Oh, you just have to look at that one. The other one, you have to tell them." But actually, you know, do we know what celebrates them, what engages?
I think that is just a beautiful way to end it, isn't it, Jane?
Yeah, perfect. Take away our love. Look at our love language.
Love, but thinking of love language.
Yeah.
Where can we find you, Roger? Where can people find you if they want to?
So I will pass on the information. So I've got a parenting community on Facebook, and I'm doing various courses. I'm actually living now in Derby. I do a lot of work in Nottingham, but you can find me on Facebook. And again, I'll send the information to you for
that. We'll add that on the link at the bottom. That's amazing. But Roger, you've been inspiring, motivational, everything, and I would love to have you back on again, because I think this conversation has a long healthy road ahead of it. So
stay for ages. That was absolutely fabulous. Thank you. I am definitely going to go and revisit the love languages. And just have a think about where I think the children are, and change.
And there is actually a love that, you know, there are the books, the love languages, and there is one specific
Gary Chapman.
Yes,
Gary
there's
Chapman's
one
love
specific
languages.
aimed for teens. So
that's amazing. That's exactly what I'll check. I'll have a look at that. Thanks for that, Jane.
Thank you, Roger, so much.
Roger, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Keep being amazing.